Pakistan is pushing to bring Tehran and Washington back to the negotiating table after talks failed over the weekend. That's what a senior Pakistani government official told CBS News. Despite 21 hours of negotiations in Islamabad, no long-term truce could be reached. This prompted President Trump to announce a blockade of Iran's ports, which is now underway. All of this is raising questions on what will happen after the fragile 2-week ceasefire, which expires on April 22nd. I want to bring in Moeed Yusuf. He's formerly served as the National Security Advisor for Pakistan. He is currently a senior fellow at Harvard Kennedy School Belfer Center. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
So what is your sense of the position that the United States and Iran, but primarily the United States, finds itself in this morning, given where we were potentially on Friday?
Yeah, I think it's frankly a position of frustration with the fact that there's been a marathon session. I think that in itself was a big achievement. You'll remember just a week ago, President Trump was tweeting about a whole civilization dying. So we've, come a long way from that. I think the talks, from what I understand from Islamabad, were not bad. There was some chemistry in terms of both sides wanting to move forward. Pakistan played a role of an active mediator. But I think it was too much to ask for to try and get a formal deal out of one day of conversations. But the fact of the matter is there is frustration because it's not quite clear how do you move forward from here. There are three sticking issues. One, of course, Vice President Vance put out clearly was the nuclear one. But there are the Strait of Hormuz and Israel's role in Lebanon. Those were the other two big sticking issues, I think. And we don't have easy answers for any of them. I think you have a path where we can get to another conversation. Pakistan is again trying along with Turkey and Egypt, and I think perhaps China behind the scenes, try and get the two sides either virtually or physically back in the room, if you will, to see if at the very least we can extend the ceasefire. That would be the first step. But the decision by President Trump to impose a blockade on any ship going to Iran and docking, I think it's going to essentially raise Iran's economic costs. That's what it's meant to do. It's not meant to be a signal to go back to war. Iran is not allowing passage of any ships otherwise. So we've got a complete blockade. This means energy prices probably will rise, but the hope, I think, in Washington is that this will force Iran into an economic situation where they won't be able to hold for too long and they'll come back to the table to agree to what President Vance said was US's best offer.
But Moeed, both sides have been very clear about their red lines and where they are here. Why was there optimism from Pakistani officials that there could be a breakthrough here?
Well, look, I think partly because it was desperation on the part of Pakistan and others who really want the war to end. It's the region that ultimately knows that this is going to end up in a catastrophic disaster if this continues. That said, I will also give credit to Pakistan and others because ultimately the kind of preparation we saw, the kind of detailed discussions that happened, that wouldn't have happened if the two sides weren't coming there with a goal of coming out with something. So I think all three sides had agreed that this is serious, all wanted to reach an outcome. And yes, they were, I think, shooting for too much here. But Pakistan, I think, does get credit for putting all of this together against odds, because as I said, it didn't seem like it was coming together just a week ago.
And Moeed, do you have any details from your contacts in the government about what was discussed or the mood? You mentioned there was a little bit of chemistry, some warmth there. What can you tell us?
I think President Trump has come out since then saying that, the Iranian negotiators, they found to be serious and seasoned. I think perhaps it's exactly the same because this conversation, of course, remember, there have been many conversations, whether through Pakistan or otherwise, before they got to Islamabad. The kind of detailed working that had been brought to the table, especially by Iran, wouldn't have happened if these conversations weren't happening offline as well. So in that sense, I think they haven't walked away with the same animosity and enmity, at least among the delegations who were present there. Also, I think it's pretty clear, if you see the signaling both from Washington and Tehran, we don't want to go back to war. But when you have a kind of situation where the blockade is there, where the Iranians are saying that if there are military vessels, we will see that as a breach of a ceasefire. Israel is showing no signs of wanting to be part of the ceasefire in Lebanon. I think there are a lot of ifs and buts here, a lot of things that can go wrong. And I can't rule out the fact that we may end up in a place very soon where both sides are shooting at each other again. But I do think that people who are saying that the negotiations failed, that's a bit of an exaggeration. I think everybody wants some conversation to happen. I don't see President Vance flying back to Islamabad next week, but I do see a hope that they will find enough there, at least not to go back to war, while some conversations continue.
All right, Moeed Yusuf, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.